Coming up, what the heck is going on with Old Key West? Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. Coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends, Marissa Vallotton.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Derek DeBoer.
Hey now.
And, of course, our producer, Mr. Craig Williams.
Oh, hey.
And joining us via Skype, the lovely Kriegers, Amy, and the guy she married. Before we get started, just a reminder to everyone, this show is brought to you by, I'm sorry guys, this is my seventh or eighth show today, so no idea where this is going. This show, along with all of our DVC content, is brought to you by the World of DVC, DVCResaleMarket.com, if you're in the market for a DVC resale contract. DVCRentalStore.com, if you'd like to rent out some DVC points. Rent out your DVC points. Try DVC before you buy. It's a great place to go. And MoneraFinancial.com, which can help you very easily finance your next DVC resale purchase. So, some stuff going on with Old Key West.
I haven't heard.
Some stuff going on. Why don't, Paul, I'm going to let you explain this.
Sure. So we're almost coming up on about, I think, 2 to 3 weeks ago, back near the end of August, we had Old Key West owners begin to receive an email from Disney Vacation Club, basically asking them nicely if they could buy back their contracts. This seemed to be a targeted email. It did not go to everyone. The language of the email sort of suggested that they were aiming for people that maybe haven't used their points in a period of time, or older Old Key West owners, so people that have owned it all the way back from the beginning. I know for a fact that our very good friend, Webmaster Doc, over on Disboards, received this email. But basically, it was just very nicely worded, saying, hey, reach out to us if you're interested in potentially selling your Disney Vacation Club contract, and we'll talk to you about it. We did receive some reports from some members that did make that phone call and reach out to DVC. And we did find out that the going rate that they were asking, that they were telling members that they were going to give them, is somewhere around $80 per point. Now, we'll just let that sink in for a second.
Yeah, and while you're letting that sink in, I want you to think about this image. Big, round brass. That's what it takes to send out that email at that price point.
It took me a while to put
I like those. It takes a moment, then it hits you like, okay. Because I'm sitting here looking. I'm sitting here looking at DVC Resale Market's website right now, and I'm seeing contracts 106, 115, 117, 119, small point contracts 155. 117, and these rat bastards are turning around saying, we'll give you $80 for it. But go ahead, Paul.
We can take this one level more. The big round brass. Also, shortly thereafter, a week later, raised the direct purchase price for Old Key West if you were to buy directly from Disney Vacation Club, from $170 per point to $180 per point. And this is one of the only resorts that I believe we've seen 2 price increases for in this calendar year. We saw one back in July from $165 to $170, and now we've actually gone from $170 to $180. So we've raised the price of Old Key West, and we're buying back contracts at $80 per point. Something's happening.
Well,
and they're also buying back a lot on right of first refusal. So I think DVC Resale Market put out their statistics for August, and Old Key West was almost 30% of their Old Key West contracts were being bought back from Disney, and that's the highest resort buybacks. Bay Lake being around 20%, being the next one.
Now, look, I get they need to generate revenue, right? Because, they've had a year. But what's the possibility that Terry Schultz's move was actually just a cover for the fact that she's panhandling on Orange Blossom Trail to raise money for DVC? What is this? You guys have worked for these people. What do you think? What is this?
So internally, here's what's interesting. The people that they have sending out these emails and doing these calls to members are not their sales team. So they have their quality assurance team who's basically does like their compliance. So it's not any of their sales staff that are involved in this in any way, which is strange. Two, which doesn't seem the most upfront way of phrasing it. What bothered me the most with the email was kind of the ambiguous phrasing of, we're going to pay you more than what we would normally buy back in right of first refusal. So if you go to our blog and you go to our right of first refusal and you look at, we're seeing on average with Old Key West in the 120s per point on right of first refusal. So you're going to pay more. Well, maybe they got it somewhere in right of first refusal somehow at a lower price, but to blanket that statement doesn't come off super upfront.
I just think it's so strange too, in that, from just like you said, a lot of these people, I don't know how targeted these are, because I've had people that got that email that say, Derek, why would they send this to me?
Right.
We use our points every single year. So what they almost created is a different monster that they never maybe had any intention of creating, which is that seller that says, oh, well, I never really thought about selling my contract. Let me go on my laptop and let me type in DVC resale market. Why? What's that? So in a way, you're having people do research into what could I possibly get for my contract.
Part of this email, didn't it encourage?
They gave them a 7-day period to research resale before they came back to them. Like,
that's a lawyer. Yeah.
That's it's all like the whole email. It's all done by compliance, which working internally for Disney, it's a very interesting dynamic because there's the sales side and there's the compliance side. And somehow we work together, but it's so strange.
You work together, but compliance runs the show.
That's it. And so the fact that they have the compliance team being the ones to reach out on these buybacks, it's just all very interesting.
Which means that there is some, I mean, just from my perspective, would tell me that there is some dicey legal waters that they have to navigate in what they're doing.
They're being very cautious about.
And they're being very, also, I love us. I love our community. I love you guys. It's death. But we'll threaten a lawsuit as we're ordering our pancakes. So they know that this is a very hyper-engaged market. And if anything is the slightest bit off, we're all over it like white on rice. So that would make sense to me because they know something as unusual as this. Do you think this has anything to do with, we've always speculated about, are they ever going to extend offer an extension of the 2042 expiration? Do you think this, because obviously when you buy direct from Disney,
it's extended.
It's extended.
Right.
So they're buying a 2042 contract and extending it to 2056?
2057.
2057. I can't for the life of me figure out A, why they're doing this, but also B, what's next. This is not the end of this story. I'm telling you right now, this is not the end of this story. Something's going on.
Yeah, and it's just strange to me because Marissa and I were talking, being a Disney Vacation Club guide way back when they announced that original Old Key West extension, it didn't exactly go. I mean, Paul knows, it's pretty common knowledge. I mean, it did not go over well at all. But unlike this offer now, where their compliance team and their admin team are making phone calls, Vacation Club guides back then, literally we had phone nights to where they gave you a list of thousands of old Key West owners and you personally called them up over the phone and said, did you want to extend your contract? If not, we need you to say you're not going to extend your contract. And so Vacation Club guides were, it was kind of comical how little we were paid for the old Key West extension, meaning that's why it didn't go over well, because the guide said, well, listen, how do I want to spend my time? Would I rather sell to a new family, a brand new contract, or chase down this old Key West owner to see if they want to extend it for an additional 15 years. So I don't think they're looking that far ahead for anything else like the 2042.
So then we found out soon after they'd sent the same email out to Saratoga owners and Animal Kingdom owners. I think what they're trying to do is get enough inventory, skipping maybe the right of first refusal process and going, can we just scoop up as much cheap as we can for that drop product, which makes me think that the price for Grand, both at Grand Floridian and then whenever they have the California Towers, I think they're coming in hot and high personally. And I think they want a very healthy drop product that has a healthy amount of years, 2057 and 2054, to go, well, if you don't have $40,000 for your first time purchase,
right,
here's an option at $20,000.
Exactly.
Oh. Paul, I hear you grunting.
He
does that a lot.
I just make random noises all day long. I agree with what Marissa said there at the end. I think there are two factors at play. The first is that from Bill Dierks, or whatever his last name is, we've pronounced it like 75 different ways now. But with him at the helm now with financial mindset, it sort of indicates to me that DVC is going to try to make money however they can. It's not just specific. I can't talk. Never mind. Specifically, it's not specifically looking at Riviera, looking at Alani, looking at their newer resorts, but it's looking and saying, hey, if we can make money here, that's good for our bottom line, so let's do it. So they're seeing, as Marissa was saying, it's a good drop product for them to offer if someone sort of balks at some of the higher priced Disney Vacation Club properties. And I think the second relates back to sort of what Derek and you were saying earlier with the legal issues surrounding Old Key West. There's been debate for years as to whether or not they did that extension properly. And there's been debate on Disboards and in other forums as to whether or not, even if you did sign over and say that you weren't extending, whether or not you technically do have an extended deed. There's been a lot of legal questions related to that. But it doesn't negate the fact that DVC, when we get to 2050 or when we get to 2042, they're going to have a large problem on their hands. Mm-hmm. It's basically the fact that they've got an extended resort for what percentage of ownership. And so I think that there is a mindset in there to also say, let's buy back as much of this as we can and extend as much of this as we can, because that minimizes the impact once we get to 2042. And in the meantime, we can make a killing by doing so. Buy it back at 80 and sell it at 180. You're making...
Yeah, but have these people met their audience? I could understand... No, I couldn't. Of all the Disney audiences that there are, and I'm not saying that there are segments of the Disney fan community that are stupid, but there are no segments of the Disney fan community not just more engaged, because we've paid money, real money, into this, so we literally have a sense of ownership, but also more knowledgeable, have educated themselves, not just on timeshares, but on legal issues. Many of the people there are many people in the community that are lawyers. And they offer something like this. Do they really think, or it almost seems to me, and this is just because, I'm jaded, seems to me like, oh, you know what? Because of the pandemic and the economy, maybe people are really struggling and need quick cash. Mm-hmm. So let's offer them 50 cents for a $10,000 thing that they have. none of this, no part of this looks good. No part of this sends a message that, hey, you know what? Here's something really cool and new you can do if you're not using your points. Or it doesn't send a message of we value you. And that's like I said, the email, well, we hate to see our members go, get the hell out, is basically what the email was.
Yeah.
And I think they think that they can create higher value, a higher price point on Old Key West. So let's get rid of the people that are holding on to all these points so that we can get them and sell them. And hopefully they're in some kind of financial distress and they'll be, desperate enough to take this when they could easily offer. They could say, hey, listen, here's my 500-point contract. I need the money. I'll offer it for $100 a point. You get $20 more a point. And you have, it's sold within an hour. I don't know.
It's probably just a numbers game, right? So they figure and say, listen, we know that there's a lot of smart members out there. We get it. Those people are probably not going to take advantage of it. But say you throw out 50, and if they can get 5, 6, I don't know what the percentage is, but if they can get some of those people, and just like Paul said, that turnaround, buy it for 80, sell it for 180. So I think at this point, it's just a numbers game, and they're just throwing it out there.
And I get the company has, look, I've said this many times. They've lost billions with a B in the last year, not just DVC, Disney as a whole. And I am sure every business unit has enormous pressure on it right now to come up with creative ways to generate revenue. When cost overruns happened at Shanghai, Disneyland, we got cabanas in Tomorrowland. Because the company was screaming, raise money any way you can. Those cabanas lasted about 11 minutes.
I forgot about those.
Okay, right. So is this DVC's cabana moment?
Right.
Is this DVC's cabana moment? I don't know. Nothing about this looks even remotely appealing to me as an owner. No. Nothing.
No.
I mean, maybe there's something I'm missing, but I don't think if I'm missing it, I could get that. You guys are not going to miss it. Right. If there's something else going on, you guys have been on both sides of this deal. Have you ever, you've both worked for DVC directly? Yeah. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, it was always for us. You want to bring up objections before they come up, right? So, when you're a Disney Vacation Club guide, you learn through all of your training, listen, you got to proactively talk about the dues, right? You want to proactively, bring up objections before they could bring them up. So that guest doesn't say, I need to go home. I need to think about it. With this, it's just such a strange thing because like I said, I think the biggest part of it is you're begging people to do research. You're literally begging people to go online to do research.
And that's their biggest enemy.
What is the resale market? Right.
It's their biggest enemy in terms of buying DVC.
Well, and I think even if they put sales team on it, it could be a different outcome. Because again, I feel like from our time there, the sales side was very proactive. And let me tell you everything negative so I can tell you about the positive, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how we pride ourselves on the resale market of I'm going to tell you all the bad. You want to know all the bad, all the restrictions, I'll tell you everything. And if you still want resale, I'm going to help you with that. And I feel like that's such a breath of fresh air. And I feel like as compliance creeps over, it takes that away. And so I feel like this is coming out in this very undercover slight way, but also strategic business, right? So I don't know, maybe they just didn't have cash all during 2020, but there were some deals to be had on right of first refusal that they just ignored. And you think about if you had some cash on hand to buy up so many of those points that were going through right of first refusal that they just passed on. Mm-hmm. And now they're scrambling and buying at 120 per point on right of first refusal.
I wonder, because we had that last year where nothing was getting bought back.
Right.
Months.
Are they realizing that was a mistake and they're trying to make up for lost time?
Yeah, they're calling people up. Listen, that contract you have, we were
supposed to buy it back.
We were supposed to buy it back.
I mean, I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder. I mean, it really is. I mean, obviously, there's a reason behind this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not transparent about the good stuff. They're certainly not going to be transparent about this.
Right.
So, and I think more will be revealed. More will be revealed. Go ahead, Paul.
I go back to, from a sales perspective, I go back to when this one bought her new car 10 years
This
ago.
one. No, say that again. When my lovely
I'm that
wife
guy.
bought her new car, this one.
When
About 1,000 women just threw something at the screen.
Yeah. Dislike.
when my lovely wife got swindled at the car dealership, the key thing that happened was that they asked her, what color car would you like? And they didn't have that color, but they went out to try to get it. And I wonder if Disney Vacation Club is trying to do something very similar. I wonder if they're seeing an extreme interest in other properties that they've not historically really kept a good inventory of. Because we are seeing it with other resorts. Animal Kingdom Lodge, that's another resort that they're trying this tactic with. So I wonder if they're just wanting to have in their back pocket a really decent inventory in this new age that we live in of being able to say, okay, we don't like this shiny product over here. What product do you want? Okay, we have that too right here. And not having, because historically, and Derek, Marissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but historically there was basically wait lists for those properties. It wasn't always that the inventory was on hand. In certain circumstances, yes, it was, but it wasn't always that we had inventory for every property on hand to offer someone if that's the exact resort that they want. And if we are looking at it as a numbers game, if it's strictly sell to sell, if they have some on hand, if they can sell it to you in that moment, maybe that's a different perspective that they're approaching it from.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Paul, because again, when it does come down to wait lists, right? And what happens with a wait list is someone might say, I want Animal Kingdom, I want Saratoga, I want the Beach Club. Then you put them on a wait list, right? But what happens then is that heat of that moment is gone. Right? So you might call them up in a week. You might call them up in a month. It might be 6 months later. And you're calling up saying, hey, it's Derek. Great news. Remember those Beach Club points you wanted 6 months ago? Well, we have them. And they're like, oh, no.
I got
Sorry
them on
about that.
resale.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
I bought them with Marissa. But yeah, so you take out of that heat of the moment and you lost a sale. So just like Paul said, if that Vacation Club guide has those points right there, let me check, run to the back. I got the points for you right now.
So, the moral of the story, folks, get your popcorn. Get your popcorn out because this is not over. This is not over. Don't know exactly what angle they're working here, but they're working an angle. This is not normal. This is not, and it's almost to those of us that are, I don't know, like even the slightest bit enlightened in DVC, it's offensive. It's offensive. I mean, you reach out to somebody like Rob Lindsay, who's been an owner from almost the very beginning, who uses his points, and you tell him $80. This is a guy who could write a book on DVC. And I don't know. It just, and you got to wonder where this came from. Did this come from, the steel trap of a mind that is Terry Schultz? Or is it, or was Billy D working on this in the background? Because I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
That's what we landed on.
Yeah.
Calling him Billy D.
Good.
Was he working on this on the background, and this is his coming out party? I don't know.
This is his pivot.
That's better than most nicknames you've given out this past year. So I think he'll take.
Well,
Billy
it's my first shot. Give me some time. It's my first shot. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. But if you're one of those people with an Old Key West contract, and you think about selling to Disney for $80 a point, I want you to stand up and I want you to punch yourself in the face because it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Or you can just call us. Too.
Or you could just call DVC. You could do
Less
that
violent.
too. Or, well, let's see, go with the horrible violent and then give them the alternative,
Right.
which is give a call to our friends at DVC Resale Market. They'll get you more than $80 a point. I promise. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you again next week with another episode of the DVC Show. Have a great week, and remember, don't sell your damn Old Key West contract for $80 a point.